Oh boy, welcome. I think I like this English mood of talking. As my biggest fan is English speaking, I see no real reason to always keep up with the German. And sometimes I have to sit down, drink a few beer, and go through the day and think what's a tiny bit of thought I not have already heard on the internet and what I should bring to the few listeners I have. Yes, there are. Oh, there's always a garden. So this noise you hear in the back is my mother doing garden work with the hoe. Yeah, my mother is using uh, the garden hoe. For all red pillars here, I think this is quite creepy while I drink beer and talk about something. Sorry, I'm in a funny mood today. No, it's really just that. Well, what I just really thought, and this now it is a bit more serious, but what in this world is truly serious? Well, my grandfather died last week. He was 92 years old. And he always said he's not an intellectual, not an intelligent guy. But he was always a good sportsman. And this should not be, as you see in the title, a talk about my grandfather. But yeah, he had 0 listeners on the internet. And maybe this is one of the few things that will be remembered on this crazy web about him. But yeah, he left school when he was 14. And he wasn't the brightest student at all, but he managed. I mean, he always worked like 2 horses. He worked in a Fabrik. I don't have the English expression right now. In the Bude. And 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. From 14 years on, and when he got older, it got a bit better, but not that much. And on the weekends, he just built a house on a mountain. So basically alone with his son, except for the roof. There they had a professional. So he was a very hardworking man. And by the way, please excuse me, my nose is a bit full, so my voice today may not be as beautiful as it usually is. But what I want to come down to, and why Jordan Peterson is a complete idiot, but I still love him and find him fascinating. So there's really no hate going against this man here. I listen a lot to Jordan Peterson. I like what he does, and I think there's a lot of good things in there and a lot of good things to learn there. And the man has balls, he has brains, but you see, when I compare him to my grandfather, it's like Schopenhauer said, a lot of intellectuals just read themselves stupid. And that's a harsh truth. I mean, I didn't listen to the talk for churches today. He has a message to churches. But yesterday I heard a talk to Muslim people. Of course, there is a culture war going on, and Jordan Peterson is obligated to say something. He is in a position where millions of people listen to him. But Mr. Jordan Peterson, you really think the Muslims will unite, the Shiites and the Sunnis, because of a talk you do on the internet? This fight's going on very long, and it will continue to go on very long. And you really think that the Muslims in the world will unite with the Christians and the Jews of the world to bring down the woke people? I mean, come on. And now we're more into my grandfather, and often the intellectually, I did not say that he was not intelligent intellectually. I mean, he barely read, and he left school with 14. It was the war years back then. It's another story, but my grandfather always said the only people you have is your family. You know, I always loved The Godfather. And it's a bit this generation that is gone now. And the simple people. In the Godfather novel, there is just one intellectual. He's a doctor back down in Sicily where Michael meets him, and they all think this guy is a bit strange because he always reads book. And what's even more strange, he talks about it to people. And me being somewhat of an intellectual myself, I know that I'm a stupid person in a lot of things. A lot of times, wisdom is more likely to find in uneducated people. There is this literature professor I follow, and I like it. He's very entertaining, and you can learn a lot about history and even the human mind, but he's Markus Gasser. It's a German literature professor. But I had to break up with him on some level across the line because he doesn't know people. I mean, he once said, if you don't read this or that book or everything Bertolt Günter Grass wrote, then you can't really understand today's world and you're not a European. And I said, hey, that makes almost everybody not an European. Maybe you're in the minority. And so this is my thought, that if you are an intellectual person in this world, you are neurodivergent. And you just have to accept this. Maybe if you are a psychopath and a complete materialistic asshole, you can bring it to big wealth, because otherwise you won't. And maybe in rare cases, if you're a Jordan Peterson type of person, so the prophet, the modern prophet, with some seriosity in it, you can become something interesting, a public figure. But my philosophical mentor always told me, and this was the stupidity of Nietzsche. He said Arthur Schopenhauer would have destroyed Nietzsche if he lived long enough to see his work. And the older I get, I mean, Nietzsche is just poetry to me. It's music. It's like Shakespeare or something like that. It's a certain tone, and I'm not quite sure Nietzsche was aware of it, but was not aware of it on the other side. But all this, God is dead, become the Übermensch, and mankind will awake, and yeah. Well, the Übermensch is here, and you want to know what his name is? It's Jeff Bezos. It's Elon Musk. It's Vladimir Putin. It are those big shots. The real big shots the Godfather talks about. The Godfather never wanted to be a puppet of those big shots. The Zuckerbergs. Then whatever they are called, the people with the big money, who really see themselves as the ruler of the world. And they are everywhere, and they are constantly in fight with each other. You have to be a greedy person, and you have to be away from, I wouldn't say real life, but the small people's lives. And even if you're middle class in America or Western Europe, you're still middle class at the best. You know, those are really rich people. If you still work in any way, you are not close to being rich or powerful. I mean, there is this big myth going on that you have to work hard to become rich and important. And that's bullshit. Those people who are on the top always are on the top. And this is the front of the Godfather. It's a Balzac quote: behind every great fortune lies a crime. And that's just the truth. If you're a kind-hearted person who goes along with the common sense and the common morality, you will very likely not get rich. Of course, as the internet started and as new technologies evolve, sometimes nerdy people like Zuckerberg or Bill Gates they get a foot in the room, but they only stay and they only dominate that field if they are ruthless. Jeff Bezos, Vladimir Putin, Elon Musk, whoever you want to take, the English crown, the Saudi Arabian sheikhs, whoever you want to put in there, they are all very ruthless people. And they step over other people without even giving it a second's thought. I back then developed my father. In his youth, he was quite good with women before he met my mother. And he always said, you don't think with women, just do, get it. The moment you think, the other person comes and takes her away. And this is with a lot of things in life. And so, to take it back to John Peterson, I think this man really has a conscience. Someone asked him right now if he wants to go for Prime Minister, and he is that wise enough. In Canada, he's not the person to do it, and I believe that he is not. I really like that guy. I really have to say I like Jordan Peterson, but he can be stupid like all intellectuals are. My grandfather, who never read an intellectual book his entire life, but he was very poor. He grew up very poor in war. They had nothing, and it's this, to not have this around. He always, in the rare talks, the rare deep talks I had with him, this was a form of enlightenment to talk to someone like that. He always said, all your friends and all those girls, you just have to find a girl that's not a liar, and that's very hard. That was his part of the wisdom. And all your so-called friends. But I was 20 back then. I thought, let the old man talk, but it all turned out true. He even had statements like, the love life of your wife is always just in her clitoris. If you mess that up, you will lose her. Nobody ever told me that, and my grandfather did not know the fucking rap. I can say the F word, I get shadow banned all the time, but... And the older I get, and now we have the rap pill, yeah, there's truth to it. And he was a simple man. Jordan Peterson is an idealist, a moralist. I am too. I was at least. I try not to be anymore, but that's very hard. But Dostoevsky, Carl Jung, Friedrich Nietzsche, in most people's minds, those guys are just some few quotes that the people twist for themselves to bring through their standard product. And that's just the hard case. I studied Nietzsche, and I never heard anybody on the internet really getting it right. If you really want to dig into what Nietzsche actually said, the best channel around is Essential Salts. And that's just, that's a big podcast, a lot of videos. It's 100 or 200 hours. And this is a serious take on Nietzsche. You know those 4-minute videos, how to become an Übermensch, and what Nietzsche actually said, and this so mixed with a bit life positivity, and this is bullshit. And that's the same with Christianity, and the same with Buddhism, and everything else that's quite big. You really have to dig into it a lot, and it's just not for most people. And Jordan Peterson manages it a bit, and this is a good thing he does. To bring a lot of people into that fear, but sorry, he's not being wise, okay? It's not that the Prophet Jordan Peterson stands there to unite the Muslim world and then unite the Muslim world with the Jews and then with the churches. And it's a noble attempt to do so, and I think maybe he feels that he's in a position to do that. He fights a hard war, but hello, come on, get some common sense, please. I cannot even bring my mother to tolerate me drinking a beer in the evening. My own mother. And that's about how people work. My grandfather understood this. He said, stay with your family. And if you read the Godfather novels, friendship. That's a rare thing. And I mean, there was Schopenhauer, my philosophical mentor. That was a guy, I will talk about him in another place around. He was very intellectual, but he knew people exactly. He just drank every day in the same bar. He didn't have a lot of money, no kids, no wife. And he was a very happy man, and a lot of people always went to him to get counseling. And he had a very dim view. He said, with most people I don't want to be in any kind associated with. And yeah, what stays at the end? Der Lindenbaum from Schubert, he said, and Aphorismen zur Lebensweisheit von Arthur Schopenhauer. And this happens to be the world. Always think about it. Schopenhauer said it very good, and yeah, the older I get, like a lot of people who have common sense, I see that he might be quite right. Yeah, it's bad. Of course I would like to be the Übermensch and ride on a tiger, battle with my enemies, build big castles and new churches, invent new gods and change the course of history. But Nietzsche himself was a very gentle man. A very gentle man. And my mentor always said Nietzsche wanted the angel, and what happened? Hitler. And this is something... There's a video of the YouTuber Moon, Why I Hate Jeff Bezos. And this is also a recommendation just to see. So if you're not a billionaire, maybe it's not because you don't work hard enough. It's just because you're not a power-hungry, greedy psychopath. And maybe that's a good realization. For example, that's another thing I thought today. I listened to a lot of red pill stuff, and a lot of things there are true, of course. And I listen to a lot of red pill stuff, but I don't want to be a red pill YouTuber. And when I see Rollo Tomassi inviting this, I think Andrew Tate, but I'm not really sure, guy, and is this our male conclusion? People like that? He turned 400 of his girlfriends into cam girls. I mean, that's just a fucking pimp. And they had it on stage. I mean, or some guy like Rich Cooper. You have to associate with successful people, and you are the sum of the 5 people you're around. Yeah, really? Do I have? Again, my mentor, my grandfather, they were all not big shots. I mean, we're breeding now psychopaths, and I do not think that Jordan Peterson is a guy like that. He's Christian, he has morals, he's really a big sailor and a good guy who came to fame, quite accidentally, and uses it for good, but he's stupid in this case that I don't think the world can be healed that easily. And maybe it cannot at all. It's like the people always talk about karma. Karma. Yeah? I know, I'm not really familiar with the true Tibetan and Asian art of Buddhism. We in the West, we don't get that. We get something that's pop cultured down. So I can't say anything about that. But no, it's not so. And I always see this, a lot of simple-minded people always think that, yeah, if they are bad to me and they hurt me, then karma will kick him in the butt. No, it's not that simple. And this is just magical thinking. It's another, very dark YouTuber I sometimes listens to, Professor Sam Vaknin, but this is magical thinking. I shouldn't forget the real karmic thing the Buddha says is that you go through millions and millions of lives till you get out of it. So it's not that quick how people think. And I think I've seen good people that really had to endure bad things, and I've seen bad people who really just won and won and won. The world is not that easy. Yeah, but this talk is about John Peterson, and I think I said enough. I like the guy. I love his take, and he is with his heart on the right side, although he sometimes is blind on a lot of spots. So when he says what he rightly says, how evil communism is, and he brings the Judean Christian tradition against it, how it lived out. There he has a big blind spot, because my grandfather, to come back to my grandfather, he lived in a system at the beginning that was controlled by Christian people, by Catholic people, and he was a social democrat, and that life was not good. And if you go back to the monarchy and to the small people, of course the technological standards were different, but and this is why I always don't want to be this channel to go in any direction, because yeah, back then there were the big shots and a lot of people who were small. And this never changed. I'm just losing a bit of my idealism, and I want to stop being a moralist all the time. And I may be still weak in some spots. And again, as me being a music producer, when I opened up my studio and thought, now I will just work with artists and have the greatest life, and we will just make music, friends, and parties, and fun, and you know how you imagined the music industry to be? But since that, I had to learn how really shitty people can be. They just use you as a tool, they don't pay you, they don't come when they said they come. And this is always the same. And you give your all, and they are not even thankful for it. They don't want to pay. And I always ask myself, do I have a friend? Now, every listener may say, yeah, I have a lot of friends, but do you really have a friend? Someone who likes you that much? And this is a Lemmy Kilmister quote. He would hide you when you're on the run for murder. And his conclusion is, most people are not worth it to shine your shoes. I hope I get this right. I'm not good with all idioms. And in a world like this, I think someone like John Peterson is very naive to talk to the Muslim world that they, if it were that easy. You know, this is, even Jesus said, love thy neighbor, not love everybody. And that's the problem with changing the system, because we always change, okay, then we make this and that, and there's always new. People just want to fight, and maybe this is who we are. And this may be a hard conclusion. Maybe I'm even a post-Nietzschean thinker, and maybe I'm the first to really recognize this. And that's a very tough video, I guess, but the world will not be perfect. And that's the way it is. And the old systems do not work no more, and there are no new systems to come. This, where we live here, is maybe the apocalypse. It's the end of all civilizations. But why am I still happy most of the time? Because when all hope is gone, oh, that's something Nietzsche, by the way, talked about than reality it's in. And maybe reality is what we're all afraid of. But if you see that you can bury it, you can take it, then it really can bring you zu anderen Ufern, to different coasts. Die Dinge fügen sich, the things go together. Just be strong enough to take everything that comes and don't think too big. Mr. Jordan Peterson thinks too big, thinks very little. That's my advice. My grandfather always, he was good. He could work with his hands. He could fix light bulbs and all that stuff. He could build houses. He could do this. He could do that. And these were the things that he was interested in. He didn't think about uniting the Muslim world, or the Muslims with the Jews, or the Jews with the Christians. So that's the talk, why I think Jordan Peterson is an idiot. I still like him very much. Thank you for listening.